Before we begin, a quick heads up, this channel dives deep into mature themes, including infidelity, betrayal, and raw cheating stories, unfiltered relationship confessions. If you're drawn to real, emotional, and sometimes shocking stories about love, loss, and lies, you're in the right place. This is your safe space for truth-telling and drama that cuts deep. If it's your first time here, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Every action supports us and keeps the stories coming. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, ask a question, or just share how the story made you feel. Stick around until the very end, because every twist matters, and every confession has a lesson. Thank you for being part of this community. My name is Vanessa. I'm 34 years old, and I've been married to my husband, Marcus, for 7 years. We have no kids, by choice, but we had something I thought was even more sacred than children: absolute trust. Or so I believed. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman telling this story. The kind where you find yourself staring at the person you love most in this world, while they're tangled up with someone you thought was your friend. This wasn't just some fling. It wasn't some drunken mistake. It was a calculated betrayal, and the worst part? I opened the door. I let it all happen. Out of kindness. Out of trust. It started on a Wednesday night. A cold one. I remember it because the rain had been hammering down all evening, and the winds were so strong they were rattling the windows. I was curled up on the couch with Marcus, watching some random cooking show neither of us cared about, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Rachel, my colleague at work. She and I weren't exactly best friends, but we shared a lot of shifts together at the office and had slowly become friendly over the past year. We'd had drinks a few times. She'd even visited the house once for a team dinner. She met Marcus briefly that night, shook his hand, complimented his cooking, and smiled in a way I should have paid more attention to. The text read, "Hey, sorry to bother you this late. My car broke down, literally 10 minutes from your house. I don't have anyone else around here. Can I crash in your guest room tonight?" I showed Marcus the message. He shrugged and said, "Sure, if she has nowhere else to go." And I agreed. What was I supposed to say? No, find a hotel in the middle of a thunderstorm? So I told her to come over. When she arrived, she looked soaked to the bone. Hair plastered to her face, clothes damp, shivering. I gave her a towel and a change of my old clothes, heated up some soup, and even offered to run her car situation by Marcus in the morning. He's good with mechanics. She smiled, thanked us both, and said she just needed to sleep. I showed her the guest room. She closed the door gently behind her, and I thought that was the end of it. I wish it had been. Fast forward to about 1 a.m. I was half asleep, still tossing and turning in bed. Something just felt off. I couldn't explain it. It was like a weight sitting on my chest. A coldness in the room that had nothing to do with the temperature. I reached for Marcus. His side of the bed was empty. At first, I thought maybe he was in the bathroom or getting a drink. I waited. 10 minutes. No sound. So I got up. Quietly. The hallway was dark. I walked toward the kitchen. Nothing. The bathroom light was off. Then I passed the guest room. The door was cracked open. Rachel wasn't in there. I froze. Heart pounding. My stomach turned before my brain caught up. Then I heard it, a low, hushed voice. Then a laugh. Her laugh. From the living room. I crept down the hallway, moving silently. I peeked just around the corner. Marcus was sitting on the couch. Rachel was sitting on his lap. Her arms were around his neck. His hands were on her waist. Their faces were close, too close. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, blinking, trying to convince myself that what I was seeing wasn't real. Then she kissed him. I must have made a sound, because they both turned their heads at the same time and saw me standing there in my robe. Rachel's eyes widened. Marcus looked like a man who had just been caught robbing a church. Nobody said anything for a full 10 seconds. Just silence. You could hear the wind outside, whistling through the cracks in the door. Finally, I said the only thing I could say. "Get off my husband." Rachel stood up slowly. Marcus didn't move. I turned and walked back to our bedroom without another word. They followed. They tried to talk. Tried to explain. Rachel said it just happened. Marcus said he was confused. They both claimed they didn't plan it. That it wasn't what it looked like. But they were wrong. It was exactly what it looked like, betrayal. And I let her in. I gave her warmth, shelter, kindness. And she used that chance to sleep with my husband. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor like it could offer me answers. My hands were trembling, but I felt nothing. No tears. No rage. Just hollow. Marcus followed me into the room like a child about to be punished. He stood near the door, hands raised slightly, as if I were dangerous now. "Vanessa, it wasn't planned. I swear." "It just happened," he said, his voice low, like he was scared of waking something up. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. I didn't want to see the face I used to love. "And what exactly just happened, Marcus?" I said, finally turning toward him. She tripped and fell onto your lap in the middle of the night while I was sleeping down the hall? Rachel was standing behind him now, arms folded tightly like she was cold. She had changed out of my clothes, which made it worse. I couldn't help but notice she was holding her shoes in her hands, like she knew she was about to be kicked out. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered. "I was vulnerable. You know I've been going through a lot." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't make this about your loneliness." "You were vulnerable? In my house? In my clothes? You kissed my husband." Marcus tried to step closer. "Please, Vanessa. You don't understand." "No. You don't understand. You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have ended this marriage like a man. But you waited until I was asleep, then kissed someone who was under my roof. Someone I welcomed in." They both just stood there. Silent. I pointed toward the door. "Rachel, get out." She blinked. "Vanessa." "Now." She left without another word. Marcus didn't even try to stop her. He just stared at the floor. The next few days passed like I was living underwater. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I avoided Marcus entirely, sleeping in the guest room myself. Ironic, I know. He tried to explain. He kept saying it wasn't real, that it was a mistake. He even blamed the storm. Said emotions were high and that they just talked at first. But I wasn't listening anymore. I told him to leave by the end of the week. He cried. Packed slowly, like dragging time would soften what he'd done. I watched him carry out his things one box at a time, like pieces of our marriage being dismantled. As for Rachel, she quit her job 2 days later. I guess she couldn't face me. Or maybe she knew the office would hear everything eventually. I didn't bother to destroy her publicly. She destroyed herself just fine. 1 week after the incident, I filed for divorce. It wasn't a decision made out of spite. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about self-respect. I may have loved Marcus once, but love doesn't survive betrayal. Not that kind. Not the kind that happens under your roof, while you're asleep, with someone you thought was a friend. People say healing takes time. I don't know how long that time is. All I know is this: I'll never ignore my instincts again. That night, when I couldn't sleep, my body knew before my mind did. And next time someone calls me in the middle of the night needing shelter, I'll think twice. Because what happened at midnight shocked me and changed everything. The house was so quiet after Marcus left that it felt haunted. Not by ghosts, but by memories. Every drawer I opened, every chair I passed, there were traces of him. A pair of socks under the couch. His cologne still lingering in the bathroom. A toothbrush he forgot to pack. You don't realize how someone's presence infects your home until they're gone. And when that person betrayed you, every trace of them feels like poison. I found myself doing strange things. Sitting at the dinner table and placing a second plate out of habit. Picking up my phone to text him when something funny happened, only to remember. The hardest part? I still loved him. Or at least, the version of him I thought was real. That's the part no one tells you about infidelity. The grief doesn't hit you all at once. It drips in slowly. First you lose the relationship. Then you lose the trust. And finally, you lose the version of yourself who believed in it all. I didn't cry the night I caught them. But I did cry 2 weeks later, when I saw a couple holding hands in the grocery store. I broke down in the cereal aisle, standing between Cheerios and granola bars, wondering if that woman would ever feel what I felt. If she'd ever have to look at the man she loved and wonder if his smile was hiding secrets. People say, time heals. I say, time reveals. Because as the days passed, I started remembering the signs. The shift in Marcus's behavior. The little hesitations when I asked how his day went. The way Rachel started complimenting my husband just a little too often during office lunches. I don't think it just happened. I think it started long before that night. Maybe with glances at the office. Maybe with a flirtatious message or two. But that night? That was the night they decided to cross the line. Rachel never apologized again. After she left my house, she went silent. No text. No call. No explanation. She deleted her social media. She was just gone. I sometimes imagined confronting her again. Telling her what she took from me. Not Marcus. But the belief that kindness is always safe. That opening your door to someone means you won't get stabbed in the back while you're asleep. But I never got that chance. And maybe I don't need it. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't always about the other person. Sometimes, it's about closing a chapter without burning every page. 6 months later, I stood outside the courthouse with divorce papers in one hand and my keys in the other. I remember the sky was clear that day. Not a single cloud. Like the universe was giving me a clean slate. Marcus signed everything. No fight. No resistance. Maybe even he knew this wasn't a mistake you come back from. I got the house. I kept the furniture. But the silence? That was mine too. I started therapy. I traveled once or twice. I picked up my old camera again, something I'd put down years ago when life became too routine. And slowly, I rebuilt. Not just the house. Not just my routine. Me. Because betrayal doesn't get the last word unless you let it. And I decided that night, in the ruins of my trust, that I wouldn't become bitter. I wouldn't become like them. I would heal. Loudly. Unapologetically. On my own terms. If you've ever trusted someone and they broke you. If you've ever watched the life you built shatter in a single moment. Know this. You are not weak for having loved. You are not foolish for being kind. And you are not alone. Sometimes, we have to walk through betrayal to reach a better version of ourselves. And sometimes, the person we become after the pain is the one we were always meant to be. It had been 2 years since the night my marriage ended. 2 years since Rachel betrayed me under my own roof. Since I kicked her out barefoot, and my husband followed soon after with boxes of guilt in the trunk of his car. I never heard from either of them again. Until yesterday. It was a Saturday morning. I was at a little cafe I visit every weekend now, part of the new life I built. I had just ordered my chai latte when I heard a voice behind me. Vanessa? I froze. That voice, soft, uncertain, like it knew it didn't belong. I turned around, and there she was. Rachel. She looked different. Older. More tired. Her hair was shorter, her smile hesitant, her eyes darting like she expected me to throw something at her. But what truly stunned me wasn't that she was standing in front of me. It was the toddler she was holding. A little girl. Maybe 18 months old. Clinging to her hip with wide, curious eyes. And something in those eyes stopped me cold. I didn't say anything at first. Neither did she. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was thick. Heavy. Like years had been shoved into a moment. Rachel finally spoke. I didn't think I'd ever run into you again, she said. But I've thought about it every day. I kept my arms crossed. And what exactly have you thought about? She took a breath. Looked down at the child, then back at me. What I did to you. What I ruined. The pain I caused. I don't expect anything from you. I needed you to know. I looked at the little girl again. She looked just like Marcus. Same eyes. Same chin. Is she his? I asked quietly. Rachel nodded. Her name's Lila. And just like that, my breath caught in my throat. Because that name? That was the one Marcus and I had picked out years ago, back when we were trying for a baby that never came. She saw my face and started crying. Quietly, like she knew she didn't have the right to be loud. I didn't know, she whispered. He told me the name. I didn't know it was yours. She sat across from me at the cafe. Lila played with a soft bunny plush, unaware of the tension wrapped around the table. Rachel told me everything. After that night, she thought Marcus would go back to me. That it was just a one-time thing. But he didn't. He stayed with her. Moved in a month later. Then she got pregnant. Marcus didn't react the way she'd hoped. He wasn't ready. He wasn't committed. He was distant. The kind of man who cheats once rarely stops there. Turns out, he did it again. To her. With someone else from work. I thought he left you for me, she said. But really, he just left. I watched her crumble. Not because I pitied her. But because I finally saw what betrayal does when it doubles back. It devours the ones who served it. Rachel didn't come for forgiveness. She came for peace. And maybe, for help. She told me she was raising Lila alone. No financial help. No contact. She hadn't spoken to Marcus in months. She was working 2 jobs and barely scraping by. And then she said something I never expected. I'm not asking for money or pity. But I wanted you to see her. Because she's part of your story too. Whether we like it or not. I didn't know what to say. I still don't. But I looked at that little girl, so innocent, so unknowing of the chaos that created her, and for a moment, I didn't feel hate. I felt something else. Maybe sorrow. Maybe strength. And then I did something even I didn't expect. I reached into my purse, pulled out a folded envelope, and handed it to her. Inside was a contact card for a legal aid nonprofit I donate to. They help single mothers. Quietly. Discreetly. Thoroughly. This doesn't mean I forgive you, I said calmly. But it means I don't want her to suffer for what you two did. Rachel nodded, eyes wide and wet. She didn't say thank you. She just held her daughter closer and walked away. Pause for a second. What would you have done if you were in Vanessa's shoes? Could you forgive someone like Marcus? Would you have helped Rachel after everything she did? Or would you have walked away without ever looking back? Some wounds never really close. But they stop bleeding eventually. I went home that day and sat on my porch with tea in hand, watching the world move, slowly, as if nothing had changed. But inside me, something had. I had faced the past. I had looked it in the eyes, seen the product of betrayal, and chosen not to break. I don't know if I'll ever forget. But I do know this. When the past shows up at your door carrying the consequences of its own sins, you can either relive the pain or reclaim your power. I chose the latter. And I finally felt free. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon. I had just finished teaching my last photography class for the day and returned home, tired but content. Healing had been a long road, but life was steady now. Peaceful, even. Until I saw the envelope on my front porch. No return address. Just my name. Handwritten. Slanted. Familiar. I knew that handwriting. Marcus. I sat on the couch, letter trembling in my hand. I wasn't sure if I wanted to open it. I had done so much work to let go, to rebuild. And now, one envelope was threatening to drag me back. But curiosity is a powerful thing. So I opened it. Vanessa. I know I don't deserve your time, and you probably won't even finish reading this. But there are things I need to say before I lose the chance forever. Maybe for my sake. Maybe for yours. I messed everything up. You already know that. But what I never told you is why. I wasn't just lonely. I wasn't just tempted. I was broken, and I let the rot spread until I infected everything I touched. I convinced myself I deserved more. More attention. More praise. More desire. And when Rachel gave me that, when she looked at me the way I thought you used to, I mistook it for love. But it wasn't love. It was escape. And when the fantasy fell apart, I realized I hadn't escaped anything. I had destroyed the only person who ever actually saw me. Who knew me. I haven't spoken to Rachel in over a year. She blocked me after I missed Lila's birthday. I didn't even know what gift to send. I didn't know her favorite color. I don't know my own daughter. I ruined every family I tried to build. And now I sit in a cheap apartment, alone, watching photos from our wedding on an old USB drive, wondering how I got so far from the man I promised I'd be. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But I needed you to know losing you is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I earned every ounce of that pain. If you ever want to talk, just once, I left my number. If not, I'll never bother you again. Marcus. I sat in silence for a long time after reading it. and I felt numb. Not angry. Not sad. Just cold. Because the man who once tore me apart was now asking me to be part of his healing. I didn't call him right away. I let the letter sit on my nightstand for weeks. Sometimes I'd reread it just to remind myself that he was suffering too. Not because I needed revenge, but because it made him human again. Eventually, I did call. Not out of pity. Not because I missed him, but because closure deserves clarity. We agreed to meet at a neutral place, an old library cafe we used to visit years ago. When I walked in, he was already sitting there. He looked thinner. More hollow. Less sure of himself. "Vanessa," he said, voice cracking. I just nodded. Sat down. Waited. He talked. I listened. He admitted things I didn't even know, like how the affair started weeks before the night in the guest room. That he lied about one night. That there were others before Rachel. One-night stands. Secrets I never uncovered. But he also told me he had started therapy. That he finally confronted childhood wounds he'd buried in lust and ego. That he was slowly, painfully, trying to become a father Lila could be proud of. Then he said something I never expected. "You were the only person who ever gave me a home." And I turned it into a battlefield. I didn't cry. But I did finally speak. "You didn't destroy me, Marcus. You destroyed us. But I built myself back without you. That's what you need to understand. I am no longer your victim." He nodded. Not in defense, but in understanding. We talked for 2 hours. No shouting. No begging. Just honesty, raw and scarred. And then we left. No hugs. No promises. Just a goodbye and a final release. Sometimes healing isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your story. I don't hate Marcus anymore. I don't hate Rachel. Because hate keeps you tethered. And I refuse to be tethered to a past that no longer defines me. I forgave, not for them. For me. And now, when I walk through my home, there's no trace of him anymore. No scent. No socks. No shadow. Just me. Whole. Peaceful. Free. And when people ask what happened between us, I simply say, he lost a good woman. And I found a better version of myself. Pause for a second. What would you have done if you were in Vanessa's shoes? Could you forgive someone like Marcus? Would you have helped Rachel after everything she did? Or would you have walked away without ever looking back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. These true stories of betrayal, confession, and redemption are based on real emotions, and if this one hit you hard, imagine what's coming next. If you're still watching, you clearly love deep stories like this. So don't just scroll. Hit that subscribe button. Tap the like if you felt even a spark of emotion. And share this with someone who needs to hear it, because heartbreak is real, but so is healing.